This is The Week on Word, a podcast featuring a roundup of the most interesting, informative, and entertaining interviews from Word Radio. You can listen to WURD Radio anytime, anywhere on WURDradio.com and the Word Radio app. Give us a play and download us today. In this episode, Philadelphia Mayor Cherelle Parker joins Wake Up With WURD host Solomon Jones to discuss the state of the city, including gun violence, the Trump administration, and the latest information regarding the SEPTA budget. And Mazzie Casher, he's the co-founder and executive director of the Philly Truce Foundation. He speaks with Reality Check host Tonya Pendleton about the initiative for Philly Truce, the motive for creating it, and the services it offers the community. But first, Kevin Shird is a 3-time published author, activist, and lecturer. He joins Evening WURD host Dr. James Peterson to discuss his latest book.
I am absolutely excited and humbled to introduce my next guest. Mr. Kevin Shird is a 3-time published author, an activist, a lecturer on issues like substance abuse prevention, education, public health policy, mass incarceration, and re-entry after incarceration, and currently an associate at the Center for Medical Humanities and Social Medicine at Johns Hopkins University, where he teaches a class titled Life and Death in Charm City. That's the nickname for Baltimore folks. Histories of Public Health in Baltimore, 1750 to the present. His new book is called A Life for a Life. Poor Choices and Unresolved Trauma is Killing America. It is a devastating read. I want to welcome to the program Mr. Kevin Shird.
Hey, how you doing today?
I'm doing good, brother. It's been too long since I've seen you, but I'm happy to have you on the show and happy to talk about this this riveting new book, A Life for a Life. A lot to get into here. I don't want to spoil it too much either because it really, in some places, kind of reads like a novel. So I want folks to have the experience of reading it. But maybe before there are some questions I do want to ask about it. Spoiler alert, folks. You should still buy the book. Go out and get the book. It's called Life for a Life. Poor Choices, Unresolved Trauma is Killing America. I will spoil it a little bit because there's so much important stuff here about dreams and PTSD that I really think is worthwhile to share, folks, to whet their appetite a little bit, Kevin, for the book. But maybe we should back up a little bit because I know a little bit about your story, but maybe it's worth you sharing a bit about your personal life story, your journey with our listening audience.
Yeah, so I born and raised in Baltimore City. Got involved in the drug trade at 16 years old in the streets of Baltimore. By 23, he was making easily $20,000 a day in the streets dealing drugs, which ultimately landed me in prison. In total, I spent close to 12 years in prison for drug trafficking. Got released from prison. Well, let me go back a little bit.
Mm-hmm.
I used that as an opportunity to take college courses while I was in prison.
And you were at was this when you were at the Allenwood Correctional Facility?
Yeah, I was in Allenwood. Then I later got transferred to Farrington, New Jersey, federal prison in New Jersey, South Jersey.
Kevin, actually, I don't know if you know this, Kevin, but I volunteered many hours at Allenwood when I worked out in Central PA. And so I'm fairly familiar, at least with the volunteer, not the full facility, but where the volunteers were allowed to come in and speak.
Lehigh, right?
Yeah. Well, this is Bucknell, actually. Bucknell is right in Lewisburg. So obviously the Lewisburg Supermax is there. Allenwood is there. People don't know this, but Central PA is eds, feds, and meds. There's a lot of federal. A lot of black men end up living there, by the way, and you wouldn't think of it as a black, demographically black region, but because of the prison systems that are there, like Allenwood, Lewisburg, and others, there happen to be a lot of black men incarcerated there. So I didn't mean to interrupt you though, but so Allenwood and then Farrington, but you took the opportunity to pursue an education while you were inside.
Yeah, man, because even at that time I realized, listen, the streets will chew you up and spit you out, right?
Mm-hmm.
And so at some point, you got to make some hard decisions. Do you want to continue to try to slay that monster, or do you want to try to figure things out and take another path?
Mm-hmm.
And then I chose education. Education is the only way out of that mess, right? is the only way out, man. And it'll provide you with the tools that you need to be able to have a decent life, right? Without all the other baggage that comes along with, trying to slay that dragon, which is the street life.
So Kevin, you talk a bit about choices in the book, and I've volunteered at enough prisons to know that a lot of people talk about choices, right? That's a part of the discourse for folks on the inside, for folks coming out, for recidivism, for reacclimation, reentry, all those, people talk a lot about choices. Help us understand what you saw as your choices at the age of 16 before you decided to start hustling, because I guess I respect the discourse on choices, and I love the way you frame it in your work, but it's very hard for me to accept it from like CEOs and other folks who talk about it as the kind of rulers of the mass incarceration system, because sometimes they talk about choices without understanding the context within which young Black men, in this case, have to make choices. So help us understand, what were the choices available? You're 16, you're in Baltimore. A lot of folks, the most they know about the Baltimore drug trade is from watching The Wire, right? They don't. Can you help us understand what you saw as teenage Kevin Shird? What were your choices? What were you choosing between, and what were some of the decisions that you feel like you made or could have made differently as a teenager coming up in Baltimore?
Well, first and foremost, let me just give a little bit more background on what the underground drug economy in Baltimore looks like, right? Because we're talking about generational addiction. So you're talking about a grandfather who might be a heroin addict, who has a son who might be a heroin addict, and also has a grandson who might be a heroin addict, right? I remember sitting in Baltimore City detention center several years ago, where the grandfather was there for armed robbery and gun possession. His son was there for armed robbery and gun possession, and the grandson was there for armed robbery and gun possession on the same tier. A couple cells away from each other. So the underground, the generational addiction, coupled with the issue of poverty, is a terrible mix, right? Because it generates enormous amounts of wealth, or financial resources in all the wrong ways. And so it's hard. It can be hard for some, that temptation, right? Growing up with a addicted father myself, alcohol addicted, I didn't have a role model in the household. My role models was out in the street as 15 and 16 years old. Those are the guys that I looked up to. And ultimately, those were the guys that he actually taught me how to cut heroin at 17 years old. And those were the guys that I gravitated to and learned all the things that I probably shouldn't have never learned at that age. So you get pulled into these spaces. And again, when you throw poverty on top of that, man, it's tough. Now, let me just add this when we talk about choices, right? Because and I know that a lot of young Black kids come out of those spaces and take that struggle head on. Don't get involved in the drug business. Don't get involved in crime. Struggle through college, right? Taking 2, 3, and sometimes 4 jobs just to make ends meet. And they never go down that path at all, right? So there are choices, right? But then there's also the pressure, not having mentors, not having role models in your space to give you that good advice to say, hey, not only take this direction over here, the safe one, but I'm also going to show you the direction, right? It's almost like having a high school counselor. You walk into the high school counselor's office and they lay out the next 5 to 6 years of your life, right? Graduating from high school and going into college and graduating out of college. The guidance, that support. But on the other side of the flip side of that is you got the guidance guiding you in all the wrong places. Right? And that's the path that I ended up going down at a young age.
Yeah, thank you for sharing that, Kevin. I appreciate it. But just because there's no mentor or counselor who could have said to you realistically that you can make $20,000 a day doing anything else other than what you were doing, right? Like that's the problem I have when we start talking about choices, right? Because if you take an impoverished, undereducated young person, and by the way, most drug dealers are not making money like that, right? Like most are making far less than that. But if you say to that impoverished, undereducated person, you can make $1,000 a day doing this. That's, I don't know if you call that a choice, right? Because the options seem really limited. You're right. There are tons of people who choose to struggle through it and don't end up in the drug game and don't enter. But we also know that Black men particularly are way over-indexed in this mass incarceration system. And so there's some structural things that I think we got to talk about even when we talk about choice. Okay, spoiler alert, folks. This is a spoiler alert. So I want to take us to 2 points in the work, Kevin. So in the beginning and this may be the prologue or the first chapter, I can't remember, but you open the book essentially with a nightmare. And readers won't know this at first. Okay. You open the book with a nightmare. And I think that one of the reasons why you do this is because you're really trying to take us through a case study of PTSD for folks who are not veterans of war, for folks who are veterans of these streets. And some of the ways in which this has shown up for you and continues to show up for you is in dreams. And I'm not sure, and this is Philadelphia, so everybody knows about Meek Mill's dreams and nightmares. But I'm not sure if folks can appreciate how these nightmares have haunted you personally over the course of your life, and how that is one of the more prominent symptoms of PTSD. So talk a little bit, share what you will a little bit about how certain kinds of nightmares have haunted you. And I think there are certain kinds that have haunted you. And then later on in the book, you sit down and talk with, I don't remember his last name, but I think it's Dr. Steve, who you sit down and talk with about PTSD to get a working operational definition of it that makes sense for you and for Damien's experiences. So talk a little bit about the opening of the book and the kind of nightmares that you have when you close your eyes at night.
Yeah, so I just wanted to paint the picture, right? It really just paint the picture for the reader of what that experience looks like, right? I write about it in the book. My first time being shot at, I was 16 years old, and then probably seeing my first a guy being killed. I was 16 years old also, right? And then being, like I told you, I was in the drug trade in Baltimore City, and a lot of violence comes with that. And so I've been in shootouts many times. I've had bullets pass by my ear so close I could hear the bullet whiz by. I've seen friends shot. So that stuff just doesn't go away, right? You just don't, I'm a tough guy and it's just going to go away. It don't happen like that, bro. You might push it out of your mind for some years. You might even push it out of your mind for some decades, right? For me, years later, I would have these crazy, violent, disturbing dreams. And oftentimes, sometimes I would wake up in a sweat. I would wake up startled. Definitely describe it as a nightmare. And I never understood why. I had no understanding of the reason why, right? It wasn't until years later that I got into therapy myself after leaving the streets, after leaving prison. And I had a therapist kind of break it down for me that the nightmares are actually part of PTSD and unresolved trauma. Right? And unresolved trauma, it could be something so extreme as being in a gunfight, or it could be something like a car accident, right? And anywhere in between, right? A person is traumatized from a certain situation. So for me, those crazy dreams, I never understood what the source of that was. I just thought everybody had crazy dreams.
Wow.
And it wasn't until I finally got into treatment and got into therapy, got diagnosed with PTSD, and started to understand the source of that. And so I haven't had this in several years, but I can say for me, writing was therapy. Right? Writing about this stuff, being able to research, being able to sit down and talk to people like Dr. Steve and get an education on it, so I can write about it in an intelligent way. Right? I think it's blasphemous for people to write stuff that don't make no sense and miseducate the public, right? So I purposely spent a lot of time around these folks just to learn, just to get the layman terms down so I could actually write about it. But, you know, that stuff just doesn't go away. I still remember today, broad daylight drive at the park, and at Drew Hill Park, and a guy, 200 people, you know how it is in the summer in the park, cars out, the music playing, you know what I mean? Summertime, we just having fun. And I remember a guy chasing a guy across the park with a gun. The guy stops. He puts the gun to his head while 200 people are watching. And he pulls the trigger in broad daylight. Right? Countless times. It wasn't until maybe, I think, before I started writing this book and while I was writing my first book, I was sitting home and a segment came on CNN about guys returning home from Afghanistan and Iraq, and the therapist was using writing for therapy for these guys. So they were writing out the terrible things that they had witnessed in Afghanistan and Iraq. The therapy was to write it out. And in their view, they could, in the view of the therapist, you write it out on the paper, and now you're free of it, right? And so this is actually the fourth book published, but I've actually been a ghostwriter for 10 years. So I've actually written 14 books, and I can't tell you. Well, I think I can tell you because you're a writer as well.
That's right,
and I think you can relate to this. The calming feeling, the escape that you get as a writer. So there's no doubt in my mind that my writing has been part of my therapy over the last 12 or 13 years as well.
And your writing is powerful, bro. I mean, you know, it is powerful. It is compelling. It is hang on every word kind of writing, especially because you don't know, you know, where some of the stories are going to go. Professor, we only got a couple minutes left here. And again, I don't want to spoil this piece of it, but talk to us a little bit about your friend Damien and talk about how you guys connected when you first met.
Yeah, so we met in federal prison custody, and then we met again in Allenwood prison. He was serving time. He had a 2-year sentence for a gun situation. And I'd already been in for a few years at that time. He was younger than me. I describe him then, even in the book, as a young knucklehead kid. You know, he wanted to argue with guys that was serving 50, 60, and 70 years over BET, who the best rapper was, who the best basketball player was, Kobe or LeBron James. And I used to tell him, man, bro, sit down, do your little time and go home.
Yeah, don't argue with these lifers in here.
Well, the little stuff you engage in, and it's just not worth it, right? So I was working in the education building. I would persuade him to come up to the education building and work on preparing himself for the future, like I was. Because like I mentioned earlier, I knew education was going to be the answer. You know what I mean? So he would come up sometime, but then he would revert back to old stuff. Long story short, we get separated. He gets released. I get transferred to Farrington, New Jersey to finish my time. I get out. I never hear from the guy again. Years had passed, and I could not remember his real name because we used to call him Soul in the joint. So one day while I was writing my first book, it finally dawned on me his real name, and I Googled him. And when I Googled him, because I was just trying to see, hey, how's he doing? I was hoping things had gone well for him in his return to the community, and a article popped up that he committed. Was somebody by the name of Damian Neal had committed a double murder. And so I thought it was the wrong guy. I could not believe. I was like, nah, this can't be the guy. And I went through this whole thing and these articles about he had committed a double murder in Delaware. And it was mind blowing, man. And that's what took me down a rabbit hole. I wanted to understand what made this guy do this. As I befriended the court clerk in Delaware. She would send me, papers periodically from the case. These were public documents, by the way. And I learned that he had a mental health issue, was a part of the case, a major part. And the short story of it, real quick, is that he got into a fight with his ex-girlfriend's new boyfriend, who had just been released from prison on a Friday. And they had gotten into a fight. Damien came back to the house 3:00 Sunday morning, murdered both of them while they were in the bed together. And I just couldn't wrap my arms around that. The whole, like, why? Why? Take two lives. And then the more and more I dug into the court paperwork, and by the way, because it was a double murder, he was looking at the death penalty.
That's right.
So the judge had to order a mental health evaluation and assessment. And so in his court documents, it showed, man, this guy was messed up. 16 years old, mother addicted to crack, father addicted to heroin, HIV positive. He started drinking and became an alcoholic at age 18 and 19. So he had been, and then by the time he met me in federal prison, he had just been a witness of a mass shooting in Baltimore where 12 people were shot, and I believe 2 had died at the scene. So going down this rabbit hole with the legal work, mental health, it just took me into the darkness of just really trying to connect the dots between violence, mental health, and trauma. And that's what you read about in the book through storytelling.
This is the Week on Word. Stay connected on the go with the new and improved WURD Radio app. Search WURD Radio in your app store. Stream every show with increased clarity. Easily access WURD TV, EcoWord, and Livelihood. Remember, Black Media Matters. Get the new and improved WURD Radio app today. Available on Google Play and the Apple App Store. This is The Week on Word, a podcast highlighting the top conversations on WURD Radio. Make sure you look for and follow WURD Radio on social media. Up next, reality check host Tonya Pendleton chats with Mazzie Casher of the Philly Truce Foundation.
As we sift through the latest bad news headline from the Trump administration, well, we've got some good news to share today, that there are people right here in Philadelphia who are working to make our city and therefore our nation better. We are joined today by the folks from Philly Truce. Mazzie Casher is here, I think, and I think he's got some other folks with him, so he can feel free to introduce them. But let's tell you a little bit about Philly Truce. It is an organization that has been founded to uplift Black men, and they are planning a year of brotherly action. I like the sound of that. Welcome to Reality Check, Mazzie. How are you?
Good afternoon. Thank you for having us. This is Mazzie. I'm joined by co-founder Steve Pickens, project director Salima Pace, and media promotions person Robin Weiss. So we got a full house over here. So thank you for having us.
Well, thank you all for showing up today and for showing up for the community. Tell us what Philly Truce is, why you founded it, and what you're hoping to do in this year of brotherly action.
So absolutely. So Steve and I started working in late 2020. And when we watched, as the rest of the city did, homicides ticking up to 500 and beyond, and we were reminded of our 10th grade year in high school, which was 1990, also 500 plus year. And we just felt like we couldn't watch this movie repeat itself without interjecting ourselves. So that's what we did. And we've been working constantly since then, pivoting through various programs, arriving at, our present flagship, which is called Peace Patrol, community-led visible deterrence, where we patrol blocks impacted by violence, gun violence specifically. And we employ justice-impacted men from our communities to fill that role. We work alongside the police department and the DA's office with that. And right now, a year of brotherly action, which we will launch officially this Friday, April 11th at City Hall at 11 a.m. for those who want to come out and join us, is us extending our work into what we feel is a once in a generation opportunity with what 250 is about, what we're celebrating versus the realities of what it's supposed to be. And that celebration has to happen in a 65%, non-white city with all the African Americans that we have in power. And we should be able to leverage this moment to start ourselves on a different trajectory. So that's the big picture of what it's about.
The great thing is that you are recognizing that in 2026, there should be some African-American representation in this big celebration of our nation's history, even though the history has not always been great, being a Black person in America. So let me ask you, Stephen, what do you feel that you want to make happen and achieve in this year of brotherly action?
Oh, no, that's a great question. So right now in 2025, we're basically ramping up and preparing our communities for 2026. But what we're looking to achieve in 2026 is unity, for one, of the Black communities, Black organizations, faith-based groups, elected officials, all the union leaders, just all the people that have made it successful, Black men particularly in this city, and then pulling up the others that, may have had gaps or, just didn't have the structure or support needed or necessary to achieve their dreams or goals. And we're using this 2026, we're using this as an opportunity in order to get everyone support, help, just to stand us up at the same time, because it's launching in 2026, but it's really about going beyond 26. We're looking forward for the next 250 years.
Sure.
So, with the past 250 years have where we are currently. So we have to, and we must do something together, because Philly Truce can't do it alone. So we're calling on everyone that cares, everyone that has some level of empathy, or everyone that feels as though they have something to offer. We get that a lot, like, men. They want to, whether it's Peace Patrol, we have a campaign going called Adopt a Block. They want to adopt a block. So we're just basically looking to get those supports and all those things necessary to dust that man off and stand them up that hasn't had these great opportunities that myself had, or Mazzie had, or Robin had, to be at some level in life of feeling a sense of success on their own.
Now, let me ask you, this is a program that is going for a full year, and there are several events and programs that you are sponsoring. So tell us about some of those. They're getting started, my understanding, is in May.
Correct. So presently, the call out is to go to brotherlyaction.com and identify yourself as wanting to be a mentor or wanting to have a mentor. So mentors, mentees, young men and older men, 25 and up is the call for mentors. So that's step one. Let's build the network. So go to brotherlyaction.com and sign up and say, yes, I want to be a mentor. Yes, I would like to have a mentor. From there, we build out the network, and not just there. Also, we're calling out to groups that already engage in mentorship, right? The 100 Black Men, the Man Up PHLs, the NOMOs, right, to come into this network. So step one, May 27th, mentor meetup. That's when we get together and we kind of set the agenda and the expectations of the mentors for this coming year. That is followed in July by the official kickoff and countdown of the full year with what we call the Brotherly Action Games. We'll have a short parade from Broad and Erie up to Philadelphia Youth Basketball on Wissahickon Avenue. And we'll actually just have a day of games, of fun interaction. Make sure everybody in attendance has connected with their mentor or mentee. And then we roll out from there into the summer work engagement. Right now it's proposed to do block cleaning and potentially expanding Peace Patrol throughout the summer with some of this employment as well. And while these young men are engaged in that employment, the mentorship continues. One of the expectations and requirements is for the mentor or mentor groups to host a weekly meetup. And we have a prescribed talking points and so on and so forth. And then through the summer, back to school time, we're talking with SEPTA now to bring Peace Patrol onto the subways or onto the SEPTA system in some way, shape, or form, that we can continue to show our young people that the men of your community are here for you, for your safety and for your support. And that goes through to October when we're looking at the Sustainable Black Manhood 5K or the Million Man March Remix, where we looking to have communities walk, say from North Philly down to the Art Museum, from South Philly up, and from West Philly over, and to kind of commemorate that historic moment 30 years ago. And, it goes on into 2026. But the biggest takeaway, the first nibble, the first step is we need men and young men to go to brotherlyaction.com and just say, I want to be a part of.
I've heard, and you guys can correct me if I'm wrong, I've heard that that's one of the biggest challenges is finding men who are willing to be mentors. Have you found that to be the case, or is it really just in the message and you being able, as Black men yourselves, to reach people and encourage them to do this?
Great question. I have heard that it's challenging. I have heard that even big brothers have resorted to having to pay big brothers. And let me just say this, Peace Patrol, which is our, flagship program, it started as a volunteer-based initiative that we have been able through success to grow into a paid model. At our height, we had a 77-day campaign where 680 people participated, all volunteers. Now, they weren't all, unique. Some people came for 2 weeks. And so, but in the total head count was 680 volunteers and 77 police officers. Right. So we know there are people out there. That being said, we are in this meeting right now talking about incentivizing mentors. So we recognize and understand we're not in an era where volunteerism is as compelling as it once was. But we got to do what we can and get who we can and grow it out from there. So we have had some success, and we are fully aware of the obstacles and willing to address them should we stall out at any point. But a big part of what can get us around that is for existing organizations to come on board. This is not really a Philly Truce initiative as much as it is a Philly Truce call out to say, hey, look at this moment, people, right? And in fact, this moment is the reason why we may need to work together with some people that we haven't in the past. This is the moment why we may need to do some of those uncomfortable things and step out of our usual clique of organizations and affiliations. Because, again, this moment with these eyeballs and this attention coming to this city, not just for the 250th, but the FIFA and the Major League Baseball. And, just imagine if we get caught sleeping and everybody in the position of power is from our community. It just won't look good. So Philly Truce's job, more than anything, is to raise awareness of the moment of the opportunity. So it's a tent and an umbrella that we would just invite everybody to come over and come under in spirit of the opportunity.
Well, it sounds like you're looking for mentors 24 and up is what you said. And so since you took time out from your meeting, I'm going to give you some ideas. Have you reached out to the elders in the community? Because there are a lot of elders in our community who might be thinking, people are kind of passing them by, or they don't have enriching things that are happening in their lives. Sometimes their contributions to the community are downplayed. So maybe there's some outreach that you can do when it comes to some of the elders.
Absolutely. Brother Stanley Crawford, Black Male Community Council, has come into our briefing last week and has taken up that cause with a lot of fervor. So we do know that the elders are being contacted. He confirmed that he will be present on April 11th with the Black Male Community Council. We have another elder working on our behalf, the great John White Jr., doing some outreach to the Masons, to the Divine Nine. So y'all can hear this right now. Please go to brotherlyaction.com and let us know of your interest. So absolutely, the elders brought us in. Brother Stanley and then were the first ones to give Philly Truce a cosign and open doors for us. So we started there for sure. I think the bigger thing for us is the not so elder elders, right? From
right.
the 30 to the 45, that's where we really looking to ramp up engagement.
Right. Well, it also seems like, and I think, and Stephen, Salima, please weigh in. It looks as though what you want to do is to efficiently try to combine some of the powers of the organizations that have existed for a while, bring those together and encourage everyone to work together on this year of brotherly action. I mean, there's so many fantastic opportunities there. And just like you said, 2026, all eyes will be on Philadelphia with the number of things that are happening, from the World Cup to Major League Baseball's All-Star Game to this big party that we're having to celebrate 250 years. And not all those years were great for Black folks. Let's be clear. And we certainly have a crisis among young males from the gang violence, the gun violence, all of those things. So how do you hope that these organizations will work together? And what outreach are you doing in order to bring them into the fold for all of these things you have planned?
Salima?
So I've been on the project since March. So we have reached out across the board to some of the organizations that you've mentioned. And it's progress. It's slow right now, but as this project, grows the hype, as we develop the mission, we know that they will come on. So we've been in some early, conversations with the NOMOs, the Black Voters Matter, Motivate Youth 215, some of these titans out here that are doing the brotherly action already and helping them, understand to, hey, let's do this together. Let's do this on a platform. And like Mazzie said, we just came off of a 3-day blitz all last week. We met with some of our senators, our state reps, our councilmen, and councilwomen and letting them know, like, hey, we also need your assistance, your influence. Most of you guys come from the communities, look like the communities, and this is the time now for you to use your platform to help us pull this together. So again, a lot of the motion has started since March. It's been great every day. We're growing little by little. And by May 27th, I know that the groups that we around the city, if not all of them, most of them will be connected with the Year of Brotherly Action.
Right. Well, make sure. Go ahead. Thank you, Selena.
And I also wanted to add that we're not attempting or pretending that we're doing anything new here. As you just mentioned a minute ago, it's other organizations that are doing this at a high level. We just want them to bring their operation over in this apparatus, and we do it together and then to speak to the idea of it's a lack of mentors out here. You hear that, but at the same time, some of those ways of recruiting mentors is dated. So we look at it as like, okay, well, we put together an apparatus here that has a brand new engine, knocked the rust off, and is ready to fly, not just drive. So at this point, it's just a matter of how attractive is it to the individual to want to get involved. And that's all we're doing, and we're asking everyone to bring whatever their secret recipe is. Let's put it all in a pot together, and then we'll have the greatest show in front once the world is here, and be like, other mayors calling from other cities, and other city council members from other cities, and state senators, and state representatives, and senators, and congressmen. Let's look at Philadelphia and what they're doing this time.
Right. I love that you're bringing together all these different elements because I think it's necessary in order to make something like this happen. PhillyTruce.com, BrotherlyAction.com. Those are the two websites that you can go to. And Mazzie, Stephen, Salima, thank you for joining us today. Let us know again, there is a City Hall gathering on Friday. Tell us what time and where so that if folks want to come out and support you. And I really hope a lot of people will do that. Where should they go and when?
Yes, ma'am. Yes, ma'am. This Friday, April 11th, 11 a.m. on the south side of City Hall at the Octavius Cato statue or memorial. Again, this Friday, April 11th, 11 a.m., out on the south side of City Hall, the South Apron, the Cato Memorial. This will be the official launch to the city. And just one more comment before we close. We've been saying a lot, work together, work together, work together. What does that mean? And I can't tell you how many times in this little bit of couple years that we've been doing this, that I get a call or come into a meeting and someone's talking about they want to put together this elaborate database of all the partners, and we work in silos and da 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 da. The ironic thing about this is in preparing for this, we've been studying the history of Philadelphia, right? And always since the beginning, 1684, 2 years after it was founded, William Penn looked around and he was like, "Why we can't get together?" Right? So it's been going on for 340 something. You understand what I'm saying? Right. So we gotta, for people to work together, we kind of gotta understand what together means, right? And I'm not even going to profess to say that I can tell you right now, but I will say this: Philly Truce is successful in this couple years because we found what we do that nobody else does, which is peace patrol, right? And we were shown that through trial and error. Now, everybody kind of got to be honest with themselves and look at where they crushing it, what they comfortable with, and just come and say, you know what? I'll do that. I'll do this because that's what I know. We just got off a meeting with Councilmember Isaiah Thomas, and he said the same thing. I can help you with one thing. Pick a thing, right? And so that's all we got to do. Everybody got something that everybody else can do. And that will crush the need for us to keep telling ourselves we can't work together. We keep working in silo, right? We got to change the story. We got to change the mindset. We got to change the narrative. And the only reason we put all of these events together, this run-up, is so that we have enough time to figure all of that out. We need to be prepared to seize this opportunity because right now we are not. And that's the final word.
Well, listen, if we can get 1 million people together for an Eagles victory parade, I think we can get 100 people to mentor these young Black men, some of which are really hurting our community and hurting themselves. So brotherlyaction.com, phillytruce.com. Mazzie, Stephen, Salima, thank you again for joining us today on Reality Check. Anything that I can do to support your cause, please give me a call. Happy to do so.
You're listening to the Week on Word podcast.
Good morning. It's Solomon Jones, host of the hottest morning show on radio, Wake Up With WURD. Listen weekdays from 7 to 10 a.m. for laughter, for fun, for politics, for family, for more than you can imagine. Check it out every day, Monday through Friday. Wake Up With WURD on 96.1 FM, 900 AM, WURD.
You're listening to the Week on Word podcast. To learn more about our programming, visit WURDradio.com. Our last conversation for this episode features Wake Up With WURD host Solomon Jones with Philadelphia Mayor Cherelle Parker.
Joining us now, Philadelphia Mayor Cherelle Parker. Mayor Parker, good morning.
Good morning, Solomon, and good morning, URD family.
Uh-oh. Okay. All right. So, I want to ask you about what's going on with the budget in the city of Philadelphia. The budget, as you know, was more than an economic document. It's really a document of what you believe. One of the things that you've listed as a priority in the budget is housing. And in order to do that, we're going to have to borrow some money. Why housing as a priority? And is it something that you believe council is going to support and ultimately approve?
So Solomon, first, thank you for having me. Mm-hmm. And I'm excited. This is my second budget, right? Mm-hmm. So we're referencing it as the One Philly budget 2.0. I want to give you a snapshot overall so folks know the budget represents $6.7 billion in investment for the people of the city of Philadelphia. We continue to prioritize what I promised, right? Safe, clean, and green with economic opportunity for all. And Solomon, you can't get there without housing. And another commitment that I made when I was doing the trail was that I would create and or preserve 30,000 units of housing for both homeowners and renters. And why did we frame it that way? First, the most affordable house that we all have is the one that we currently live in. Mm-hmm. So that's the preservation side for Philadelphians who, particularly in the area in which I grew up and know we have an aging housing stock, and quite frankly, across the city of Philadelphia. So preservation, home improvement to your existing house, that's preservation. And then we really do need the building of new. And that is new housing from the ground up, but that's affordable housing, workforce housing, housing for people of all income brackets here in the city of Philadelphia. And that's when we propose to borrow $800 million in city bonds, $400 immediately this year. It's a $2 billion plan that we have proposed, $800 million in the borrowing, $200 million of that, Solomon, in current state and federal dollars that we get. So that's $1 billion on sort of like the cash side, I would reference it as. But then we have $1 billion worth of land and other resources that we are proposing to make a contribution into housing. So that's $2 billion for 30,000 units of housing. And I wanted something people could measure me by. It's easy to stand up and say, okay, we're going to work to create more housing in Philadelphia, but that's just too general. How are people going to measure whether or not you accomplish what you said? That's where the 30,000 units come from. Great deal of methodology behind it in terms of the buckets of where, but I'm really excited about it, Solomon.
So in order for housing values to go up, neighborhoods have to be stable. Now, something happened in the community that you and I live in at the Finley Recreation Center, where there's been a lot of investment. There was a shooting at that recreation center. There was a big meeting. You were there, the police commissioner, the council person, and the DA and others. What are we going to do about our young people who are shooting each other? Homicides are down, shootings are down, but our young people increasingly involved in gun violence. What are we going to do about that?
So one, Solomon, thank you for affirming that. And and it's really interesting. The reality is, while we were actually in the community meeting about the shooting at Finley, while our meeting was taking place there, another shooting happened not far from there at Lonnie Young. What does this affirm for us? That you are right. Homicides are down 37%. Shootings are down 36% in the city. We have over 200 officers engaged proactively in community policing in the city. But this is not the time to take our foot off the gas of what we know works. And WURD, I need you to remember this for me. I have always said that we could not police our way out of the challenges as it related to gun violence that we were experiencing here in the city. But rather, my comprehensive public safety strategy is called the PIE. And I want you to just remember PIE. That's prevention, intervention, and enforcement. Lift up our police commissioner, Kevin Bethel, Chief Public Safety Director, Adam Gear. The strategy is working, and it is making a difference. So it's not just policing. This anti-violence funding, $19 million to community groups last year, $24 million. These are the boots on the ground, Solomon. More funding for youth sports. People were like, youth sports, what do you mean? I'm a visual learner. The only thing I can say is I'm an Oak Lane Wildcat, and I grew up running track for the Flames and a cheerleader for Oak Lane. We had activities. Well, nothing frustrated me more than to see our young people, drill teams, basketball teams, football teams, I don't care, standing on the streets with their helmets out or their drums out, hoping people who drive by in the car will give them a contribution. Our young people shouldn't have to do that. So we established a $3.2 million youth sports initiative so that we can help those grassroots community-based organizations and Little League support them. So, Solomon, there is no magic wand. If somebody calls Solomon, if somebody writes that, well, if Philadelphia would just do this one thing, I will tell you, Solomon, they don't understand how complex this issue is. And so that's why it's PIE for me. That's also why it's on Safe, Clean, and Green with economic opportunity for all. Housing, because people need a safe and affordable place to live. Our children need access to extended day, extended year programs. That's summer jobs, Solomon. It's just a comprehensive approach, and that's what we're doing here. And so we're going to keep our foot on the gas, and we're not. And I want to say this: this is not a time for us to give ourselves a round of applause, because the data shows that our numbers are dropping significantly, even more than other cities across the country. We have to continue investing in more and doing what we know that works. And so that's important to me. Comprehensive. Okay.
So we are, of course, dealing with what's happening here in Philadelphia. And one of those things is SEPTA saying that they have a $213 million annual structural deficit. So they're bleeding $1 billion every 5 years. And they're saying they need state intervention in terms of the money, or they're going to have big fare hikes, drastic cuts in service. What can the city do to help? I know they're asking money from the state, but the whole world is going to be looking at us next year for this 250th anniversary of America. What can the city do with SEPTA's situation that they're in?
Solomon and WURD listening audience, I need you all to hear me clearly on this one. For the first time in a very long time, as it relates to our investments. I'm talking about Philly's local share. First, when you think about SEPTA, yes, SEPTA works significantly in Philadelphia and in southeastern Pennsylvania, but I want us all to remember that SEPTA is a Commonwealth of Pennsylvania asset, and it is the heart of the economic viability in southeastern Pennsylvania, but benefits the entire Commonwealth of Pennsylvania. And I want Philadelphia to feel good in knowing that we have already increased our local share because, see, Solomon, this problem did not just start. Mm-hmm. Now, last year, SEPTA, they raised the red flag and said, we're facing down a structural deficit and we need support. So what did we do in Philadelphia? The governor introduced his budget, and based on the increases for SEPTA in the governor's proposed budget, it would have required that Philadelphia, Bucks, Chester, Delaware, and Montauk, WURD listeners, those are the counties around us, and we all contribute to SEPTA what's called our local share. Well, we've already increased our local share, even though the General Assembly did not pass the budget that the governor recommended, which included that funding for SEPTA. So we've done $109 million in fiscal year 24 to a proposed $135 million in FY 26. That's a $30 million increase over the last 2 fiscal years. $30 million, Solomon. So when anyone says to you, what is Philadelphia doing for SEPTA? Say, wow, this is the first time in a long time that we can say Philadelphia has already done its homework and made the sacrifice it was required to make. In addition to that's on our basic subsidy to SEPTA. Our 5-year plan also includes $716 million in operating support and $76 million in capital as a match as well. Capital is the fix-up. So when we talk about operating, I want you to think about TWU, our bus drivers. I want you to think about everything they need for operation. And then the $76 million in capital, that's, it's aesthetic look. That's any investment it needs to make in its infrastructure. So Philly, we have to advocate, support the governor, our legislative leaders, Joanna McClinton, Bradford, Harris, Hughes, and we have to stand strong with our legislature. And this is not just a Philly thing. This is a Commonwealth thing, and we should never forget that.
But they're going to be looking at Philly next year, and if these bus lines are cut and the prices go up, it's not going to be a good look for Philadelphia. What can we do to get the state to give them their money? Or is there, another source, other than what we normally do, in order to make sure that SEPTA is whole when we hit 2026?
Well, Solomon, I'll tell you now, it's different when you're standing on the outside looking in. I'm no stranger, for example, of fighting for SEPTA and mass transit, and I understand its significance, particularly as it relates to the economic impact. And I want to say this, too, because a lot of people don't think about this. When I was in council, I raised the red flag about something that we were investing in and needed to do more because this was a phenom we had never seen before. We have a large number of Philadelphians who are now reverse commuting. Mm-hmm. Somebody saying, what? Solomon, when you and I were growing up, people in Bucks, Chester, Delaware, and Montauk, like in the Southeast, a lot of people who lived in those counties, they commuted into the city for work. While we have some folks who still come in, there is a larger and growing pool of Philadelphians who leave Philadelphia to get to those other counties for work. And that is something that we, Philadelphia, that's why job creation and competitiveness is so important here, because a lot of our people are leaving. What should we be doing? When we did Act 89, which was the last significant increase of recurring revenue for SEPTA, when it was also facing down the structural deficit during my tenure in the Pennsylvania House, we had a Commonwealth of Pennsylvania strategy. And we made sure when we were in Harrisburg that people knew SEPTA wasn't just a Philly asset. It wasn't just a Southeast asset. But even how SEPTA does businesses what it buys, its inventory, the supplies. It supports counties across the Commonwealth of Pennsylvania. So we have to connect with allies who also rely on mass transit. So think about Western Pennsylvania and other regions. And I think we have the ability to do it. Listen, we can't relent on this in any way, shape, or form. We have to stay organized and continue to advocate. And we should be able to do that together. But it's important to me that we affirm what Philadelphia has already done. Because nobody can stand up and say we haven't made the investment that we need to make investment. We did it last year, even when the General Assembly did not approve the increases that Governor Shapiro proffered. We did. And I want Philadelphians, I just feel good that we've done our homework. That's not always the case, Solomon. So that's why you heard me reference it on multiple occasions.
Okay, so we're talking with Philadelphia Mayor Cherelle Parker. And of course, the elephant in the room is we have a new administration on the federal level. They're threatening to take money from sanctuary cities. They're threatening to take money from school districts that engage in what they're calling illegal DEI, although they haven't defined what that is. And a lot of that stuff could affect Philadelphia. What do we do on the local level to deal with this new administration?
So, Solomon, I want to say this, and if I'm not anything, Solomon, I'm consistent. After the November election, I was given a presser downtown, and people asked me, once we all knew what the results were, people said, what are you going to do? I said, I'm going to do exactly what the people of Philadelphia elected me to do. Stay laser focused on the commitment that I made to the people of Philadelphia. Work extremely hard in partnership with our legislative body. Proud partner working with Council President Kenyatta Johnson and all members of council. And we're going to focus on controlling. I know what I am as the mayor. Safe, clean, and green and economic opportunity for all of Philadelphia, Solomon. So no one should, expect to see me not paying attention and being laser focused on what it is that we have the ability to influence. Now, and of course, there've been daily, and when I say daily, responses and reflections, because there's been some decisions that, took place today, Solomon, let's say at 10 o'clock, and then by 4, and you can be in a frenzy, and then by 4 o'clock, a court will have acted, or, a change will have been made to what was just proposed earlier that day. So what are we doing right now? Now is the time for us to not just be strong. You have to be strong and strategic and smart and do your homework. So any potential cut that has been proposed to any Philadelphia activity, we're making sure we're monitoring everything up close, up front. We're staying in contact with, and I mean almost daily, all federal, state, and our local partners to make sure that all of the right hands know what the left hands are doing, and we're continuing to advocate. But Solomon, I just want to say this. Where you stand on the issue depends on where you sit. I have to make sure as the mayor of this city, I'm held accountable, and rightfully so, for making sure our city continues to run and we protect all Philadelphians. And I don't apologize for that. It may not look the way some people want it to look for me. Some people may think that the strategy is going to war on social media with someone. That's not how I've been successful and being able to accomplish anything. When I've been in Harrisburg, I like to remind people that when I was chair of the delegation, I had a Republican governor, a Republican-controlled House, and a Republican-controlled Senate, and no Democrat in leadership in my chamber. So I didn't have a Speaker McClinton or Appropriations Chairman Harris. I had to figure out how to make it work. And we did the best we could with what we had. And that's the strategy I'm employing now, Solomon. So there are some people who they have a lot of opinions about it, I will say, but I'm going to keep on doing what I've been doing. And that's why leveraging and employing the use of every asset that we have influence over here in the city, it is so essential right now. So that's what I'm doing. I'm staying focused on what I'm responsible for, but making sure that I'm communicating any, impact that any federal policy path on what we do here in the city. And I'm working with our federal partners, state partners to do it.
All right. As Philadelphia Mayor Cherelle Parker, Mayor Parker, thanks for joining us this morning on WURD.
Thank you so much, Solomon and WURD. I apologize. My voice is a little, crazy this morning, but we had a meeting last night. I got home a little late. So thank you so much for your understanding.
You're listening to the Week on Word podcast. Represent your favorite station in style. Look for Afrocentric tees, hoodies, tumblers, notebooks, mugs, and more. Just click the shop tab at wordradio.com. Show the world that you're all about Black Talk Media.
You gotta look good.
Thanks so much for listening to this episode of The Week on Word. Let's stay connected. Sign up for our newsletter and listen to us online at WURDradio.com and on the Word Radio app.